Hello, welcome to Anshika's Academy, and this is the series of Ancient Indian History. Chapter number 2, Modern Historians of Ancient India, Colonialist Views and Their Contribution. Also, educated Indians retained their traditional history in the form of handwritten epics, Puranas, and semi-biographical works. Modern research in the history of ancient India began only in the second half of the 18th century to serve the needs of the British colonial administration when Bengal and Bihar fell under the rule of East India Company in 1765. They found it difficult to administer the Hindu law of inheritance. Therefore, in 1776, the Manu Smriti, the law book of Manu, which was considered authoritative, was translated into English as a code of Katulas. Pandits were associated with British judges to administer Hindu civil law and Maulavis to administer that of Muslims. The initial efforts to understand ancient laws and customs, which continued largely until the 18th century, culminated in the establishment in Calcutta in 1784 and 1784 of the Asiatic Society of Bengal. It was set up by the civil servant of East India Company, Sir William Jones. 1746 to 94, he was the first to suggest that Sanskrit, Latin and Greek belonged to the same family of languages. He also translated the play known as the Abhigyan Shakuntalam into English in 1789. The Bhagavad Gita, the most popular Hindu religious text, was translated into English by Wilkins in 1785. The Bombay Asiatic Society was set up in 1804 and Asiatic Society of Great Britain was set up in London in 1823. William Jones emphasized that originally the European languages were very similar to Sanskrit and Iranian language. This enthused European countries such as Germany, France and Russia to foster ideological studies during the first half of the 19th century. Chairs in Sanskrit were established in the UK and several other European countries. The greatest impetus to ideological studies was given by the German-born scholar F. Max Muller, 1823 to 1902, who was largely based in England. The revolt of 1857 caused Britain to realize that it badly needed a deeper knowledge of the manners and social systems of an alien people over whom it ruled. Similarly, the Christian missionaries sought to uncover the vulnerabilities in the Hindu religion to win converts and strengthen the British Empire. To meet these needs, ancient scriptures were translated on a massive scale under the editorship of Max Muller. Altogether, 50 volumes, some in several parts, were published under the Scared Books of the East series. Although a few Chinese and Iranian texts were included, ancient Indian texts were predominant. In the introductions to these volumes and the books based on them, Max Muller and other Western scholars made certain generalizations about the nature of ancient Indian history and society. They stated that the ancient Indians lacked a sense of history, especially of the element of time and chronology. They added that Indians were accustomed to despotic rule, and also natives were so engrossed in the problems of spiritualism or of the next world that they felt no concern about the problems of this world. The Western scholars state that Indians had experienced neither a sense of nationhood nor any form of self-government. Many of these generalizations were made in the early history of India by Vincent Arthur Smith, 1843 to 1920, who wrote in 1904 the first systematic history of ancient India. His book, which was based on an in-depth study of available sources, gave primacy to political history. It served as a textbook for nearly 50 years and is still used by scholars. Smith's approach to history was pro-imperialist. As a loyal member of the Indian civil service, he emphasized the role of foreigners in ancient India. Alexander's invasion accounted for almost one-third of his book. India was presented as a land of despotism which had not experienced political unity until the establishment of British rule. He observes autocracy is substantially the only form of government with which the historian of historian of India is concerned in some British interpretations of Indian history served to denigrate the Indian character and achievements and justify colonial rule. A few of these observations appear to have some validity. Thus, in comparison to the Chinese, Indians did not show any strong sense of chronology. Also, in the earlier stage, important events were dated with reference to the death of Gautam Buddha. However, generalizations made by colonialist historians were by and large either false or grossly exaggerated, but served as good propaganda material for the perpetuation of the despotic British rule. Their emphasis on the Indian tradition of one-man rule could justify the system which vested all powers in the hands of the viceroy. Similarly, if Indians were obsessed with the problems of the next world, the British colonial masters had no option but to look after their life in this world. Without any experience of self-rule in the past, how could the natives manage their affairs in the present? At the heart of all such generalizations lay the need to demonstrate that Indians were incapable of governing themselves. Nationalist approach and its contribution, all this naturally came as a great challenge to Indian scholars, particularly to those who had received Western education. They were upset by the colonialist distortions of their past history and at the same time distressed by the contrast between the decaying feudal society of India and the progressive capitalist society of Britain. A band of scholars took upon themselves not only the mission to reform Indian society but also to reconstruct ancient Indian history in such a way as to make a case for social reforms and, more importantly, for self-government. In doing so, most historians were guided by the nationalist ideas of Hindu revivalism, but there was no dearth of scholars who adopted a rationalist and objective approach. To the second category belongs Rajendra Lal Mitra (1822 to 91), who published some Vedic texts and wrote a book entitled Indo-Aryans, a great lover of ancient heritage. He took a rational view of ancient society and produced a forceful tract to show that in ancient times people ate beef. Others sought to prove that in spite of its peculiarities, the caste system was not basically different from the class system based on division of labor found in Europe's pre-industrial and ancient societies. In Maharashtra, Ramakrishna Gopal Bhandarkar (1837 to 1925) and Vishwanath Kashinath Rajwade (1869 to 1926) emerged as two great dedicated scholars who pieced together varied sources to reconstruct the social and political history of India. R.G. Bhandarkar reconstructed the political history of the Satavahanas of Deccan and the history of Vaishnavism and other sects. A great social reformer, through his research he advocated widow remarriage and castigated the evils of caste system and child marriage. With his unadulterated passion for research, V.K. Rajwade journeyed from village to village in Maharashtra in search of Sanskrit manuscripts and sources of Maratha history. The sources were eventually published in 22 volumes. He did not write much, but the history of the institution of marriage that he wrote in Marathi in 1926 will continue to be a classic because of its solid base in Vedic and other texts, and also because of the author's insight into the stages in the evolution of marriage in India. Pandurang Vaman Kane (1882 and 1972), a great Sanskritist wedded to social reform, continued the earlier tradition of scholarship. His monumental work entitled The History of the Dhammasastra, published in 5 volumes in the 20th century, is an encyclopedia of ancient social laws and customs that enables us to study the social process in ancient India. The Indian scholars diligently studied polity and political history to demonstrate that India did have a political history and that the Indians possessed expertise in administration. Here, due credit should be given to Devdutt Ramakrishna Bhandarkar (1875 to 1950), an epigraphist who published books on Ashoka and on ancient Indian political institutions. More valuable works were done by Hemchandra Rai Chaudhary (1892 to 1957), who reconstructed the history of ancient India from the time of the Mahabharata war, that is 10th century BC, to the end of the Gupta Empire. As a teacher of European history, adopted some of the methods and comparative insights in writing this book. Although he did not discuss the problem of periodization, his history of ancient India is stopped with the 6th century AD, though he recognized the contribution of V. A. Smith to the reconstruction of early Indian history. Yet Rai Chaudhary criticized the British scholar at many points. His writings are marked by impeccable scholar, but show a streak of militant Brahmanism. Why he criticized Ashoka's policy of peace, a stronger element of Hindu revivalism, appears in the writings of R.C. Majumdar (1888 to 1980), who was a prolific writer and the general editor of the multi-volume publication History and Culture of the Indian People. Most writers on early Indian history did not give advocate attention to South India. Even K.A. Nilkant Shastri (1892 to 1975), the great historian from South India, followed the same approach in his A History of Ancient India, but this was more than rectified in his A History of South India. His style is terse, but his writing lucid. In the presentation of facts, he is as dependable as Rai Chaudhary. However, his general observation on the nature of polity and society in South India are questioned by several scholars. Nilkant Shastri emphasized the cultural supremacy of the Brahmanas and also highlighted the harmony that prevailed in early Indian society. Under his leadership, several research monographs were produced on the dynastic history of South India. Until 1960, political history attracted the largest number of Indian scholars, who also glorified the histories of their respective regions on dynastic lines. Those who wrote history at a pan-India level were inspired by the ideas of nationalism, in contrast to the book of V. A. Smith, who devoted almost a third of the total space to Alexander's invasion. The Indian scholars gave this subject much less importance. On the other hand, they stressed the importance of the dialogue of Porus with Alexander and Chandragupta Maurya's liberation of northwestern India from Seleucus. Some scholars such as K.P. Jaiswal (1881 to 1937) and A.S. Atlekar (1898 to 1959) overplayed the role of the indigenous ruling dynasties in liberating India from the rule of the Sakas and Kushanas, little realizing that Central Asian and others became an intrinsic part of India's life and did not exploit Indian resources for their original homeland. However, the greatest merit of K.P. Jaiswal lay in exploding the myth of Indian despotism. As early as 1910 to 1912, he wrote several articles to show that republics existed in ancient times and enjoyed a measure of self-government. His findings finally appeared in Hindu Polity in 1924. Also, Jaiswal is charged with projecting modern nationalist ideas into ancient institutions, and the nature of the republican government presented by him is attacked by many writers, including U.N. Kosal (1886 to 1969). His basic thesis regarding the practice of the republican experiment is widely accepted, and his pioneer work, Hindu Polity, now in its sixth edition, is considered a classic. Move towards non-political history. British historians A. L. Bhasham (1914 to 1986), a Sanskritist by training, questioned the wisdom of looking at ancient India from the modern point of view. His earlier writings show his depth interest in the materialistic philosophy of some heterodox sects. Later, he believed that the past should be read out of curiosity and pleasure. His book, The Wonder That Was India, 1951, is a sympathetic survey of the various facets of ancient Indian culture and civilization, free from the prejudices that plug the writing of V. A. Smith and many other British writers. Bhasham's book marks A great shift from political to non-political history. The same shift is evident in Didi Koshambi's 1907 to 1966 book, An Introduction to the Study of Indian History, 1957, later popularized in the Civilization of Ancient India in Historical Outline, 1965. Koshambi blazed a new trail in Indian history. His treatment follows a materialist interpretation of history which is derived from the writing of Karl Marx. He presents the history of ancient Indian society, economy and culture as an integral part of the development of the forces and the relations of production. His was the first survey volume to show the stages of social and economic development in terms of tribal and class processes. He was criticized by many scholars, including Bhasham, but his book continues to be widely read. Over the past 40 years, there has been a sea change in the methods and orientation of those who work on ancient India. They lay greater stress on social, economic, and cultural processes and try to relate them to potential developments. They take account of the stratification of the text and compare their conventional nature with archaeological and anthropological evidence. Boards all this bodes well for the future of historical studies. Western writers no longer insist that all cultural elements came to India from outside. Some of them, however, hold that religious ideas, rituals, caste, kingship, and tradition are the central forces in Indian history. They also underscore various divisive treasures which meant for stagnation and are more concerned about the problem of stability and continuity. They seem to be fascinated by old exotic elements and want to preserve them forever. Such an approach implies that Indian society has not changed and cannot be changed, that stagnation is an integral part of the Indian character. Thus, the Chauvinist and sophisticated colonialists use the study of India's past to prevent its progress. A few Indian writers magnify the role of religion and believe that everything good and great originated in their country. Communal approach. Since 1980, some Indian writers and their Western counterparts have adopted an aggressive and irrational approach to the study of ancient India. They identify it with Hinduism. Under British rule, colonialist historians deliberately denigrated India's achievements and attributed important elements of Indian culture to external influence. Indian historians underlined India's contribution to world culture. Hence, in the interpretation of history, there was a continuing struggle between colonialism and nationalism. There was a continuing struggle between colonialism and nationalism. Now, the situation has undergone a change. The struggle now is between communalism and irrationalism on the one hand, and rationalism and professionalism on the other. Though most writers are rational and professional, some have become communal and irrational. The latter overlap myths and legends, arguing for existence of Rama's Ayodhya without historical evidence. They censure all critical studies of the Brahminical social structure and even support the caste system by ignoring the social inequity stressed by Manu. Those who once attributed the painted grey hair to the Vedic people and looked for it outside India now declare the Indo-Aryans to be indigenous Indians. They argue that the Muslims and Christians who came from outside are foreigners. Such generalizations need to be dispassionately examined on the basis of a rational reading of the sources in the context of religion. Neither Hindu nor Hindu drama is drawn to any ancient Sanskrit text nor to any other ancient source. The communal writers go on harping on Hindu and Hindutva under the circumstances. Historians wedded to objective and scientific criteria have to be alert and adhere to reason and long established historical standards. Chronology. Second half of the 18th century. Modern research in the history of ancient India. 1765 Bihar and Bengal came under the rule of East India Company. 1776 Manusmriti translated as Code of Kantu laws. 1784 Asiatic Society of Bengal founded in Calcutta. 1785 Bhagavad Gita translated into English. 1804 Bombay Asiatic Society founded. 1823 Asiatic Society of Great Britain set up in London. First half of the 19th century. chairs in Sanskrit established in England and several other European countries. 1904, A List History of India by V.A. Smith. 1924, Hindu Polity by K.P. Jaiswal. 1926, The History of the Institution of Marriage in Marathi by V.K. Rajwade. 1951, The Wonder That Was India by A.L. Bhasham. 1957, An Introduction to the Study of Indian History by D.D. Koshambi. 1965, The Civilization of Ancient India, an Historical Outline by D.D. Koshambi. 1837 to 1925, R.G. Bhandarkar. 1869 to 1926, V.K. Rajwade. 1875 to 1950, D.R. Bhandarkar. 1882 1972, P.V. Kane. Thanks for watching.